The forest had gone completely silent long before midnight, and that silence was somehow louder than any sound I had ever heard. The campfire had burned down to glowing embers, the cold mountain air wrapped itself around our little campsite, and every shadow between the trees seemed alive. My best friend and I had agreed to share one sleeping bag because an unexpected rainstorm had soaked most of our camping gear earlier that afternoon. I thought the hardest part of the trip was already behind us. Then, in the darkness, I felt her gently touch my arm before whispering words that changed both of our lives forever. She quietly asked if I was awake, and in that single moment, I realized this camping trip was never just about hiking through the mountains. Before we continue, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance and that the strongest friendships can change lives forever, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel Everyday English Podcast. Your support helps us continue bringing heartfelt stories that remind us all to never give up on hope. My name is Nolan, and until that weekend, I believed I understood everything about friendship. I had known my best friend, Marin, for almost 12 years. We met during our first week of college when we accidentally reached for the same book in the campus library. She laughed first, handed me the book, and somehow that small moment became the beginning of a friendship that survived graduation, failed job interviews, family hardships, and countless ordinary days that slowly built an extraordinary bond. Everyone around us assumed we would eventually become a couple, but life never seemed to move us in that direction. Either the timing was wrong, or one of us was carrying burdens too heavy to notice what everyone else claimed was obvious. The camping trip had been Marin's idea. She said we both needed to escape the noise of work, phones, deadlines, and responsibilities. The mountains were covered in bright green pine trees, wildflowers stretched across open meadows, and sunlight poured through the branches from the moment we arrived. We spent the entire day laughing like children again, skipping stones across a crystal-clear lake, cooking simple food over a fire, and talking about dreams we had quietly buried as adulthood slowly replaced youthful hope with endless responsibilities. Everything changed during the afternoon when dark clouds rolled over the hills without warning. Heavy rain rushed through the forest, soaking our backpacks before we could cover them. We managed to save our food and tent, but one sleeping bag was completely ruined. The only dry one left was barely large enough for 2 people. We laughed about our bad luck, convinced it would become another funny story we would tell years later. As evening arrived, the rain disappeared just as quickly as it had come. The sky cleared into a beautiful ocean of stars, brighter than either of us had ever seen. We sat beside the fire sharing stories about our childhoods. Marin spoke about her mother, whose illness had slowly taken away her strength over the previous year. She admitted she had been pretending to stay positive for everyone else because she believed showing sadness would only make her family worry more. I listened quietly because sometimes the greatest gift we can offer someone is simply being present. When the fire finally faded, we climbed into the sleeping bag, carefully keeping enough distance to avoid making either of us uncomfortable. The mountain air grew colder with every passing hour, and eventually exhaustion carried me toward sleep. Then I felt her gently touch my shoulder. She quietly asked if I was awake. I opened my eyes and immediately sensed something was wrong. Even in the darkness, I could hear the trembling in her breathing. She confessed that she had been carrying a secret for months. Every medical appointment with her mother made her feel more helpless. Every morning she smiled at work while secretly wondering how many healthy days her family still had together. She said everyone expected her to stay strong, but strength had become unbearably lonely. Listening to her that night, surrounded by silent trees and endless stars, I realized how often people suffer without anyone noticing. We spend so much time asking others if they are busy, but almost never ask if they are truly okay. I told Marin she did not have to carry everything alone anymore. I reminded her of every difficult chapter we had already survived together. College debts, broken dreams, job losses, family disappointments, we had faced every storm side by side without ever keeping score. This challenge would be no different. I promised her that whatever happened next, she would never face it alone. The next morning, sunlight poured through the tent, painting everything with warm golden light. The fear that had filled the previous night had not completely disappeared, but something inside both of us had changed. For the first time in months, Maren smiled without forcing it. It was a small smile, but it was real. When we returned home, our lives became busier than ever. Hospital visits replaced weekend adventures. Instead of hiking trails, we spent afternoons sitting beside her mother's hospital bed, telling stories, bringing homemade meals, and celebrating every good day no matter how ordinary it seemed. Slowly, neighbors, co-workers, and old friends joined us. Acts of kindness multiplied in ways neither of us expected. Someone mowed the lawn. Another family delivered groceries. A retired teacher organized community meals. Small gestures became powerful reminders that hope often arrives quietly through ordinary people. Months later, although her mother's health continued to decline, she often smiled while watching the people around her. She once said that illness had shown her something beautiful, that love becomes strongest when life feels most uncertain. Those words stayed with me forever. One afternoon, after another hospital visit, Maren looked at me with tears in her eyes and thanked me for answering her that night in the mountains. She admitted she had almost convinced herself that nobody would understand what she was feeling. If I had remained silent, she might have continued carrying that weight alone. Instead, one simple conversation changed everything. That camping trip never became famous. There were no dramatic rescues or unbelievable miracles. But sometimes the greatest miracle is simply choosing to stay beside someone when life becomes unbearably difficult. We often search for extraordinary moments while overlooking the quiet conversations that transform ordinary lives forever. If this story has touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who may need encouragement today, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Everyday English Podcast so more people can discover stories that remind us kindness still exists. Special request, please comment with the words, "You are never alone," if you believe one caring conversation can change someone's life. As I think back to that peaceful mountain morning, I no longer remember the cold, the rain, or the uncomfortable sleeping bag. I remember the courage it took for one friend to admit she was struggling and the life-changing difference it made when someone simply listened without judgment. Sometimes love does not arrive with grand speeches or dramatic moments. Sometimes it arrives quietly beneath a sky full of stars, hidden inside a simple question asked in the darkness, and answered with a promise that no one should ever have to face life's hardest battles alone.